What's going on, guys? Alex here with TFL Bike, and next to me is
also Case.
And today we've got some pretty exciting breaking news because Sondors just announced their first ever electric motorcycle, the Metacycle. Like I said, the first one from the brand, and it's supposed to be fun, easy, and pretty convenient as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the brand?
Absolutely. Sondors is an electric bicycle manufacturer that has been around for a little while. They mostly produce fairly affordable bikes, so a lot of them under $2,000, and because of that, in 2020, they surpassed 100,000 electric bicycles sold. They were founded in 2017, and this has definitely become one of the major manufacturers of these kinds of bikes. But obviously, this Metacycle is showing them jumping into kind of a new segment, and one of the most impressive things about this motorcycle is actually the price. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the design.
Yeah, you're going to want to stick around for the price because it's pretty impressive. They're sticking with that affordability theme. Let's jump into the design though. This has definitely got that urban look to it. Really futuristic design. You have this frame that's kind of see-through, pass-through frame. You don't have an internal combustion engine there taking up tons of space. Spoked wheels, which is pretty interesting. Normally on a motorcycle like this, you'd expect to see an alloy, but you've got an old school look with these spoked wheels. Looks pretty cool. It's a very narrow and short looking bike. Sondors says that this only weighs 200 pounds. It's an all aluminum frame and swing arm, and by the looks of it, it's unpainted aluminum. So it's kind of got that Cybertruck look to it, which is pretty popular. Really took off in 2020. So I'm loving the look of it. Love how futuristic it looks. There's tons of red accent bits all over it as well. Not too many though. You've got the rear caliper done in red. Your master cylinders up front are also done in red, as well as the Sondors logo and the stitching in the seat. So they didn't overdo it, but I think there's just enough color there to make it pop. You also have this one orange wire going from the battery to the rear hub, which helps you recognize that this is an electric motorcycle. And then you get to the rear hub design. The motor is actually in the rear hub, and this is a really cool looking piece of machinery there. It just looks so detailed, looks really beefy, really sturdy. Yeah, I think it just looks so cool.
And I have to agree with you in terms of design. It is very cool. It's very industrial with the raw metal and exposed wire going to the back. And like you said, that hub design is way cool. All of those different little almost fins in it make it really stand out. One thing that I do think is interesting about the design, though, is that seat looks really thin, so I do wonder how comfortable it's going to be to sit on.
That looks paper thin. It's a city bike, though, so, you know, a couple minutes here and there, not going to be too big of an issue, but yeah, I wouldn't want to sit all day on that seat. It looks so thin.
Yeah, and it, granted, is a bike that only goes 80 miles in terms of range, which, you know, relative to gas-powered motorcycles, that's not a lot. But in the electric two-wheeler segment, that's not too bad. Top speed of 80 miles per hour, and all of that is courtesy of the electric hub motor that produces 90 pound-feet of torque nominal and 200 pound-feet of torque at its peak. And the difference there is that nominal would be continuous power. So that's what that hub motor can put out continuously, but momentarily it can put out a total of 200 pound-feet of torque. So this should be a relatively spry bike to ride. It shouldn't be slow, that's for sure. The peak power that it can put out is 14.5 kilowatt hours, and the nominal number there is 8 kilowatt hours. And to compare that to another popular electric motorcycle, the Harley-Davidson LiveWire, the LiveWire can produce a nominal 13.6 kilowatt hours. So this is 8, and the LiveWire is 13.6. And while 13.6 is almost double 8 nominal kilowatt hours, this Sondors Metacycle weighing in at only about 200 pounds, that's less than half of the 549 pounds that the LiveWire weighs. So this amount of power output should be pretty potent in this small of a motorcycle.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different bike than the LiveWire, right? But it's still cool to make that comparison. And yeah, like you said, we don't have 0 to 60 times or anything like that. All we do have is the top speed of 80 miles per hour and a range of 80 miles, which I think is just fine for the city. You're not really going to need to go much faster or much further than that. But yeah, I think this being a 200-pound bike, those performance specs should get you up and moving pretty quick. I would imagine that this is a pretty fun bike to ride, and unfortunately we weren't able to get some seat time on it today. If we were in LA, we would have been able to, but because of COVID, we don't want to travel. But this isn't some vaporware product. There are these bikes riding around right now doing test rides, so hopefully we'll get some seat time on it soon.
And granted, there might be some slight changes from this early production model that we're looking at here to the full-scale manufactured unit, but hopefully not a lot, because what we're looking at seems like it has the potential to be a great buy. Now, before we continue, we want to take a quick look at our sponsor for this episode, Rider Justice. How's it going, everyone? This is Case from TFL Bike with our Ride Smarter Tip of the Month, brought to you by Rider Justice. We all know riding two-up is one of the great aspects of riding a motorcycle. But did you know that your insurance may not cover your passenger, or that insurance coverage can differ if your passenger is married to you or not, or that your passenger may not be covered if you caused the accident? Neither did I. That's why you want to make sure you carry a healthy amount of uninsured/underinsured coverage, as well as liability insurance. Shoot for at least $250,000 of uninsured coverage and more if you can afford it. On most premiums, that works out to a couple extra bucks a year, and it's worth it to protect you and the ones you love. To learn more about how to ride smarter with common sense tips anyone can follow, go to riderjustice.com, the champions of biker rights, on the road, in the courtroom, and now across the country.
All right, let's talk about the battery tech a little bit. The battery is removable, which is a key point because this being a city bike, most people buying it probably aren't going to have a garage with a power outlet to plug it in. So it's pretty important that that battery is removable. It's a 4,000 watt-hour battery. Up front, you have all these holes that look to be cooling holes to keep airflow going through the battery. Right above that, you have a keyed compartment where you can remove the battery. SONDORS says that you will be able to charge the battery up in about 4 hours, and you can do it even quicker using public charging stations. They haven't really announced what that means, whether it'll be level 2, level 3 charging, and what the exact times will be, but they do say that you will be able to charge using a public station in the near future.
Now, obviously, because this motorcycle is electric, you don't have a clutch lever and you don't have a shifter, and because the controls are pretty much all moved around, both the front and rear brake are on the handlebars, so you don't have any foot controls at all, you just have the pegs to stand on. And that might take a little bit of getting used to, but I think it's the kind of thing that once you spend some time on this bike, it'll probably be intuitive after a little while. But granted, that might take a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, I think we're seeing this shift even in the car space too. Electric cars don't have all the same things that gas cars have, so you can kind of change around where things are located and how you interact with the vehicle. And the same thing is happening with motorcycles. You don't have a clutch, you don't have a gear shift lever by your left foot, so you don't necessarily need all the controls to be in the same spot. You can move it around to where it makes sense. And yeah, I think that's really cool. If I were test riding this, it probably would be a little confusing. I'd think that was a clutch lever up on the left side, but if I bought this bike, I'd probably get used to it in a couple hours.
Unsurprisingly, all around on this bike, you get LED lighting front and back. And the coolest part of that is this rear taillight, which is integrated into the frame. It looks very sleek. It's not a huge taillight, and there's definitely a lot of riders out there, which, fair point, they like to see a little bit of a bigger taillight for that added safety, but purely in terms of aesthetics, this brake light is very cool, and it's mounted right above the license plate, so your eyes will probably naturally be drawn there anyways. And in terms of rider aids on this motorcycle, well, we don't know if it's going to have any at all. That information hasn't been released yet, but considering that this is a particularly affordable electric bike, there's a good chance it's not going to have much of any rider aids at all. And for a smaller motorcycle like this that's made for cruising around town, I think that's going to be fine. Personally, I kind of hope that this is a boiled down, simple, affordable electric bike. Should we go ahead and tell them the price?
Yeah, $5,000 for this bike, so wouldn't be a huge surprise if it doesn't have all the rider aids. I disagree a little bit with Case. I think ABS is always a good thing to have on a street bike. It's one of those things where you don't need it till you need it, and then you're really glad you have it. But I wouldn't be disappointed if this bike doesn't have it. $5,000 for a electric motorcycle that is really well designed, it looks like. I mean, we don't know the build quality yet. We haven't touched it up close and personal, but from the looks of it and from the performance specs they've given us, seems to be a pretty good value for $5,000. Just talking about the tech a little bit more, you can see the dash up front, and it's a pretty cool design, but it's a little weird. There's actually a tach and a gear indicator on it. This bike, of course, doesn't need a tach and a gear indicator, so not sure if that's going to be changed when this bike actually goes on sale. If that's kind of just a generic part they slapped on it for the meantime, but we'll just have to see what they do with that in the future. One really cool piece they did integrate into this bike is a wireless phone charger. So right on the top of the frame, you have this clear bubble. You can put your phone in there and it will start charging. This is great for turn-by-turn navigation, going through the city. You know, you don't always want to mess with pulling your phone in and out of pockets. So really cool. You have an easy spot to put your phone, and phones are, most of them are waterproof these days anyway, so you don't really need to worry about weather. Not sure if that compartment will actually be sealed and waterproof by itself. It would be cool if it is. But yeah, that's a super cool feature. Pretty unique. I haven't seen that on a motorcycle before, so props to Sondors for innovating and making something cool.
I would guess that that compartment is most likely going to be waterproof.
I would hope so.
Even if your phone is water resistant or waterproof, it would be a bummer to look at your phone basically in like an aquarium down there full of water. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think it would be easy to make it at least mostly water sealed, and that would be nice in general. There's also some other pretty interesting components on this motorcycle, specifically the brakes, which are branded by a company called Bybre, or Bybre. It's basically Brembo's kind of sub-brand for slightly less expensive, less premium brakes, but still manufactured by Brembo. That's actually where the name comes from, by Brembo. It's Bybre.
Yeah, pretty funny. And I've used these brakes on my RC390. They're pretty grabby. Don't know if it's the exact same components, but I've used braking components by Bybre, and I like them. Also, the front forks are WP, and same thing on my RC390. I've got kind of the same suspension and braking setup. So pretty high quality components, not top of the line, but definitely nice for a $5,000 machine. Of course, we don't know if all of this is final. The Bybre brakes and the WP suspension weren't in the press release. We're just kind of looking at the pictures, so that could change. Hopefully it doesn't. Also, looking at the tires, Michelin Road 5 tires, which I'm super stoked about. I have a lot of experience with these tires. I've had them on 2 different bikes, 3 different sets of these tires. They last a super long time. They're amazing in the rain, and you can ride them really hard and really aggressively. So I hope these are the tires they actually ship with. The rear looks to be a pretty skinny tire, which is cool. It means it'll be cheap to replace. And overall, I just love how skinny and narrow this motorcycle is. The bars seem to be narrow, the seat's narrow, the whole bike is narrow. And that's going to make lane splitting and weaving in and out of traffic, pulling into tight parking spaces in the city, just an absolute breeze.
Yeah, and with a bike this size, I think there's a lot that you can do with it. My mind immediately goes to putting some scrambler tires on this, maybe a Pirelli MT60s, and seeing how it rips on a dirt road, especially with that immediate power that you get from an electric motor. I think there's going to be a lot of potential here.
There's so much potential, and you know, one of the first things I saw or thought about when I saw this bike is that pass-through. There's a huge potential for accessories there. You know, you could put a storage bin there to hold, you know, a sweatshirt or your lunch or your shopping bags, whatever you need to do. Maybe even they could fit a spare battery in there. You know, you want to go out and take it in the dirt for the day. Maybe you can hold a spare battery, and since you can remove it, you can just swap them out when one dies. So that'd be pretty cool. I think there's a lot of potential for where Sondors can go with this pass-through design. Something interesting, no passenger pegs on this bike. It seems to be a one-person motorcycle. So functionality is a little split, you know. On one hand, one person, but on the other hand, super eco-friendly, and you should be able to, you know, bring your cargo along. You have that phone charger, so a little bit of a mix between fun and practicality.
We're very much looking forward to getting some saddle time on one of these very soon. Hopefully we can make it out to one of Sondors' events at some point when travel is a little less restricted. And really excited to see actually how it performs. Yeah, just like Case, I would love to get some seat time on one of these and see what exactly it feels like when you crack that throttle open. If you're interested in picking one of these up, $5,000, and you can pre-order it at sondorsx.com.
We're not exactly sure when they'll be available, so stay tuned. We'll give you some more information on that when we can, and you'll be able to find that over on TFL Bike. That's where you can find all the news relating to motorcycle content over there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out all our other videos at TFL Bike. We'll catch you in the next one.